Hi, in this video I want to take a look at part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. We're going to look at some sample questions and answers for this part of the test. Also, we're going to be focusing on a specific topic, the topic of photos. Now, as you probably already know, part 1 of the IELTS speaking test lasts about 4 to 5 minutes, and the examiner is going to ask you some questions about yourself. And they're going to start with some quite simple questions that will be pretty easy to answer. Questions about what you do and where you come from. Simple questions like this. But after that, they're going to ask you some questions that might seem a bit more surprising. The type of questions you can't really predict. And these are the types of questions we're looking at here today. Photos is a topic you might be a bit surprised to get asked questions about. And it's good to be prepared for these types of questions and think about the types of answers we need to get. Now, the example answers we'll be looking at in this video are quite high-level answers. So they're the type of answers that a Band 9 level student would give in this part of the test. They're not too long and they're not too short. They're just appropriate answers to these types of questions. So let's get on with it. Let's have a look at the questions first. So we're looking at 4 questions. And the first question is, what type of photos do you like taking? The second question is, what do you do with the photos you take? The third question, when you visit other places, do you take photos or buy postcards? And the final question, do you like people taking photos of you? So that's the 4 questions that we're going to be looking at. And we'll have a look at the answers in just a second. But you can see here all 4 of these questions are actually focusing on the present tenses. So we should kind of use those tenses or that tense when we give our answers. None of them look particularly complex, so we don't need really long answers. Remember, the idea here is to give quite short and clear answers that get straight to the point. But again, not too short. You can remember from previous videos on part 1, I will always tell students usually to use around 2 sentences to give their answers to these types of questions. 1 sentence giving a nice, clear and direct answer, and another sentence giving a quick reason for that answer. So there we go. Let's have a look at the first question and the answer to this first question. So the first question was, what type of photos do you like taking? Well, I don't usually take photos, to be honest. I prefer to enjoy whatever I'm doing rather than stop to take a photograph. So that's it. Those are the 2 clear sentences that we're using to answer this question. You can see in the first sentence that we use language from the question. Take and photos is in that first sentence. But then we've actually answered the question in a slightly negative way. We said, I don't usually take photos, to be honest, which would imply that we don't actually like taking photos. And we can see here that although the speaker is being kind of negative with their answer, they're just being honest. And this is usually the best policy when you're answering these types of questions. Don't think you have to give a positive answer. You can just be honest, but make it clear that you are being honest. And then after this, the second sentence just gives a reason. And the reason is, I prefer to enjoy whatever I'm doing. Rather than stop to take a photograph. So that just gives a nice, clear and simple reason why they don't take photos and why they prefer to do something else. But you can see here, it's really just copying the grammar of the question using the present tense, and it's nice and simple. Nothing too complex here. The only thing that you can see really with the word photos, we're using a synonym of that, photograph. Okay, but it's not so different really. Okay, so let's move on to the second question. What do you do with the photos you take? I rarely take photos, but if I occasionally use my mobile to take a picture of something, I just leave the photo there. I don't do anything special with it. So again, we've got a similar length of answer. Just 2 lines, right? We're not giving any answer that's too long. And actually, this is 1 sentence, but it's a very long sentence with a semicolon in it. So it's enough. I don't need to add another sentence after this. But again, it's giving a negative answer. What do you do with the photos you take? Well, as we said in the previous answer, we don't really like to take photos. So we've started with, I rarely take photos. But we have to answer the question. So we've said, but if I occasionally use my mobile phone to take a picture of something, I just leave the photo there. So we don't do anything with the photo. Nothing is done with the photo. They just leave the photo in their mobile phone. And again, just to explain it a bit more, I don't do anything special with it. So again, a nice clear answer using the present tenses and again, giving a slightly negative answer. Remember, you don't really have to say you do much with the photos if you generally don't do anything. If you don't upload them to Facebook or print the pictures and put them in a frame, well, you can just say you don't do any of those things. So it's nice and clear and straight to the point and being honest. So let's move on to the third question. When you visit other places, do you take photos or buy postcards? I don't really do either. I leave it to my friends or other family members to take photographs. I'm usually with someone who likes taking photos and can share them with me later. So again, a similar length of answer. Here we've got 2 sentences. One very short and one quite long. But again, we're using this same pattern. But again, you can see it's a kind of negative answer. It's an honest answer. You don't have to choose one or the other when they're giving you an option in the question. You can give this type of answer. I don't really do either, if that's your honest answer. But if you do take photos or you do buy postcards when you visit other places, you can choose one of those options. But here, it's an honest answer. I don't really do either. And then we're going to explain that afterwards in the next sentence. I leave it to my friends or other family members to take photographs. So other people take photos when I visit other places. And I just explain it a bit more. Well, when I go to places, I'm usually with someone who likes taking photos. And of course, they can share them with me later. So again, it's just being clear, simple, and straight to the point, using 2 sentences. And again, we're copying the grammar of the question. We've got present tense in the question, and we're using the present tense in the answer. There's not really any complex vocabulary here. We're just using quite simple vocabulary in a really good way. All the collocations are right. We're using the correct prepositions with verbs, and we're combining some of these words together to show a high level of pronunciation. So instead of saying do not, we're combining those 2 words together and saying don't. Instead of saying I am, we're combining them together and saying I'm. These might seem like quite small things, but they are quite important to show the examiner you're able to do this. It's a feature of pronunciation that native speakers use when they're speaking, and we should try and really adopt that when we're speaking English to get a high score for pronunciation in the speaking test. So that's the third question and sample answer. Let's move on to the final question, and that is, do you like people taking photos of you? No, I prefer not to be in photos. I always feel awkward when someone asks me to smile for the camera, and I don't think I'm very photogenic. So there's the answer again, nice and clear and simple. You can see we're using two sentences again, using this same kind of technique to give a nice, short and simple answer, but it's still a high-level answer. It's clear and straight to the point. But again, it's a bit of a negative answer, but an honest answer. It's a do you question, and here we've answered directly with the word no. And then we've said, I prefer not to be in photos. So we've changed the language a bit. We've paraphrased a bit from the question here. We haven't used taking photos of you. We've said that I prefer not to be in photos. So it's slightly different here, but it's using the topic of the question and using that straight away in the answer. Keep the answer nice and clear and direct. And then afterwards, we have a nice reason for that answer. Why I don't like to be in photos, or why I don't like people taking photos of me. And the reason here is I always feel awkward when someone asks me to smile for the camera. So here in the reason we've got a nice adjective as well, the adjective awkward, so to feel uncomfortable in that situation. And also another reason. So we've got two reasons here. I don't think I'm very photogenic. So another nice adjective here, the word photogenic, which means someone who naturally looks quite good in photographs. Okay, but here the person in the answer is saying they don't think they're very photogenic. So they don't look very good, or they think they don't look very good in a photograph. So I don't think I'm very photogenic. So there it is. We've gone through all 4 questions and looked at 4 sample answers. You can see here that all of the answers are really doing the same thing. They're focusing on the question, not doing anything more than the question asks them to do. Most of them are giving 2-sentence answers. Even if it's under 2 sentences, only 1 sentence, it's a similar length. So the one answer that we saw that had just 1 sentence was quite a long sentence. This is the key. These sentences don't have to all be the same size. You could have 1 short sentence and 1 longer sentence, or 2 sentences with a similar size. But you can see all of the answers here are of a similar length. Also, a really important thing for you to see here in all of these answers is that we're giving quite negative answers, but we're just being honest. Some students do worry that in the test they have to be very positive about the questions and give a positive answer, but the best thing to do with these questions in part 1 is to just be honest. Tell the truth, because it will be much easier to speak if you're just telling the examiner your true feelings. You still have to say something and explain why you have those feelings, but don't feel like you have to give lots of positive answers. You can be negative with your answers, but as long as you explain it well and clearly in English, then you can still get a really high score. It's not going to bring your score down if you give some slightly negative answers to the questions. So there we have it. We've looked at some sample questions and answers for part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. I hope this video has been useful for you and you've enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then do give the video a like. And also, if you don't want to miss any future videos on similar topics on this part of the test, the speaking part, but also other parts of the test, the writing, the reading, and the listening, then don't forget to click subscribe so you'll get all those videos and get to see them as soon as I've uploaded them. So there we have it. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you again in the next video.